Grace and peace to one and all. I am Christ, I am disciple. You're watching my channel. If you like what you're seeing, you can like, share, subscribe. You can also donate via PayPal. The link is in the description. This stream is brought to you by LIVE Products. LIVE, live now. We're live now. The LIVE product line involves drinks and it also involves cleaning products. Here's the full line here. You can see the drinks, and on your left is the drinks, and behind you and to the right is the cleaning products. In terms of cleaning products, we have disinfectant, liquid detergent, fabric softener, and dishwashing liquid. You can see them all in front of you right there. In terms of drinks, we have natural fruit juices. They are of the following flavors: Morby, grapefruit, sorrel, orange, fruit punch, and what is not seen there is lime. So, LIVE, live now, we're live now. All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first before I can even go into anything else. That's what I have to say, because it's very, very true. Before I go into this, which I will be covering, I want to first start off with Restore the Snyderverse stuff. So I'm going to go into some news concerning Zack Snyder's Justice League and merchandising. And again, some of the hottest merchandising products out there today when it comes to DC is Zack Snyder stuff. And Superman has become very, very popular. And remember, Zack Snyder's Justice League is an old movie, one. Two, Zack Snyder's Justice League came out in 2021. We are now 3 years later, going into 4 years since the movie came out. So it is amazing that Prime One Studio is still producing merchandise. And actually, the hottest ticket seller for Prime One Studio has been the Superman figure, which is amazing. I mean, Batman's done great, but Batman's always been like a backup for DC. But Superman's actually come to the fore because of his different outfits, particularly the black suit. And as we all know, Zack Snyder's Justice League has been a winner in just about every single sense of the word. So Man of Steel 272 3 days ago on Instagram posted this up, and we're going to have a closer look at this model, this figure. This is a new figure. It came out just very recently from Prime One Studios. I'm going to blow it up a little bit so you guys can see. It'll be available for order in 2025, the first quarter of 2025. So you guys get out your wallets, get out your pocketbooks, and get ready to shed some more money. The highest grossing products and merchandising of DC is products from The Dark Knight, products from Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman, and also now from Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is in third place. So the highest grossing merchandising that DC has currently available to them has come from the Snyderverse. And the only other one is Christopher Nolan's, Dark Knight verse. Okay. So these are the highest grossing DC products you can have on the market. Again, another reason just to restore the Snyderverse. I mean, every single reason you could think about. In terms of merchandising, I think Queen Studios actually came out, I believe, a couple of days before Prime One Studios, and they also put out a bust of Superman. This stuff sells. And remember, these particular statues, busts, and toys we're talking about, which are really for adults, not really for kids, they are expensive, and people are shelling out money for this stuff. Okay? They're putting out serious dollars. You have Hot Toys, you have Prime One Studios, and these products are being gobbled up by adults. And this is what Zack Snyder's been explaining to the stupid execs at Warner Brother Pictures. Not Warner Brother Pictures. Warner Brother Pictures execs are smart guys. Abdi and DeLuca are smart people. But with respect to the other execs, they're stupid because they could have been making millions and millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars actually, off of merchandising if they had restored the Snyderverse. You know what I'm saying? And so this is just another new product coming out. And we don't see anything from James Gunn's anything. Nothing. His Suicide Squad, the product, there are no new products coming out of there. In fact, very little products actually hit the market. You know, we had Mayfex, we had what's the name of it? I forgot what the name of the company is that make. We've just recently seen the guy who did the Spawn comic. Forgot what his name is. McFarlane. McFarlane just put out a new a new action figure of Darkseid. Okay, this stuff makes money. It makes money. It makes sense. You know what I'm saying? It makes money. It makes sense. Anyway, let me just keep it moving. Don't forget to smash the like button if you're watching and you're liking what you're seeing, because we're going to go all the way here today when it comes to Restore the Snyderverse. So, hey, you see part of the set. We're just looking a little bit more closely at it, and you see the mother box right here. And the resolution is so good on this thing. Here's the mother box here, and it actually it can be activated, as you can clearly see. So it lights up on this studio statue. Okay, and let's keep it moving. And here is a likeness of Henry Cavill. This thing looks quite a lot like Henry Cavill. This is a 1/3 size statue. The detail on it is ridiculous. I like the look of Henry. I still don't like that they have his face compressed at the top. There's no relaxed face of Superman, and he just got resurrected. I know if you look at the background, you're going to see an apocalyptic background, but still, nonetheless, I still think that they don't give enough expressions of Henry looking calm and smiling and stuff like that. I don't know why they make the statues that way. They can make them also with him relaxed, because we've seen Superman in a relaxed mode. So we need to see that as well. I think I don't like when they do that over and over. They're always trying to scowl up his face all the time. And that's not what we've seen in Man of Steel. That's not what we've seen in Zack Snyder's Justice League. We didn't see that version of Henry. We saw that in BVS, but he was under a lot of pressure at that time. Anyways, I do understand this is an apocalyptic future. As you can see there, Darkseid's ship in the background. So he would have his face more concentrated. Here he is again. But I don't particularly hate what I see, but it's, at the same time, I would prefer if they don't have him scowling like that all the time. You know, he's not really scowling. He's just more serious here. But still, the fact that they concentrate on his forehead right here, I'm not really cool with that. You gotta at least have a version of him that's less than that. But they don't. Looks really a lot like Henry, though. Looks a lot like Henry. And this is some good stuff right here. Quality stuff. So here he is. You see the apocalyptic background right there. And there. Right. So he isn't in the apocalyptic future. Put the detail on that thing. Okay. This is probably him after he just got succumbed to the anti-life equation. And then we have your dead Batman in the hands of Superman. He snapped his neck off or something. And this is Superman has changed, and he's probably going to burn somebody to death right there. And this is him here, the ominous Superman in the apocalyptic future. We saw a piece of that in, I believe it was Cyborg's vision of the future. We saw that. It's quite incredible. So again, people have not failed to thirst for and want. I've seen people talking about these statues already online on YouTube. Who wants what and who wants what and so on. So I really dig this. And I think that this stuff is awesome, to say the least. Very, very awesome. And I think that we're going to see the Snyderverse restored in some way, shape, or form. The demand for it is just so high. And what Zack started was so the bar was so high on what he started that I just truly believe that we're going to see him finish it. Now, when exactly that is going to happen is always the question. As we know, the present regime right now it's still is adamant on continuing the path they're going on. So it has to be that this present regime is removed, or that somehow a shift of power goes to Abdi and Luca. Because remember, James Gunn has been in charge of DC now since 2022, and for 2 years he hasn't produced anything but duds, straight duds when it comes to movies. Not a single movie he has put out so far has scored. He's hoping for a Superman movie to score. I just don't think it will. And so at the end of the day, he's not going to have anything to show for it. And now the depression of DC is so bad, it's trickling over into other DC films, which would be separate from the general DC genre. So you have now Joker 2 didn't come out very well. It didn't do anything. And we're watching to see if this will trickle over into also the Batman, the sequel that has to happen, if that will also tank because of the fact that the leadership of DC has no idea how to carry and manage the DC brand. I think the most recent thing I heard is that Warner Bros. Is looking to probably sell off their DC brand. So that's even more crazy, you know. So we're watching to see what happens. But I honestly think that Abdi and DeLuca can do a much better job with DC, and I think they would actually, if they work with Zack Snyder, I think DC comes right back with a bang. You know, that's just my personal opinion on things. Now, as you can see, I have to talk about two other things, and so I want to get into that. So this was entertainment. Now, mind you, I just want to use a segue to get across to what I want to say. I'm going to talk a little bit about how Zack Snyder, once again, has exposed aspects of Hollywood. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. He's not the first, and he won't be the last. What I'm saying is Zack Snyder has exposed certain aspects about Hollywood. Right now, Hollywood, as we all know, they're freaking out that Donald Trump came back to power. And, well, some of them, most of them. But they shouldn't be, okay? But because Hollywood is CIA directed and CIA, they follow the CIA program, okay? So I'm not sure why they're so crazy mad, because CIA and Mossad work together, and quite frankly, even though Donald Trump had attempts on his life, Netanyahu wants him as the president of the United States. And while I do understand that Mossad, the CIA, they're not necessarily directly connected to Mr. Netanyahu, they are still work, you know, they work hand in hand, and the Mossad, of course, works under Netanyahu. So I'm not sure why Hollywood's freaking out about that. What I would say, though, is that Zack Snyder has exposed the CIA Mossad element. And if you guys do remember, Steven Spielberg did, I believe, a film on how Mossad was able to take down terrorism back in, I believe it was 1970, whatever, what was it, 78, I think. With the Munich was the name of the movie. And I think it was the Munich Olympics. And I think Spielberg did a story on that. Again, really boosting up Mossad. Now, do remember you have the MI6, you have Mossad, and I guess there's an equivalent intelligence agency in Germany. What I can tell you is that Zack Snyder did not paint the CIA in a good light in BVS. And he never even tried to counter it. He never even tried to make the CIA look like they were good. When Zack did that in Batman v Superman, remember Batman v Superman is a superhero film. Everybody came out with their mom, pop, father, and everybody to see this. So this was a populist film. And one of the reasons why the establishment needed to tank Batman v Superman, and it's still one of the most loved movies to this day, and merchandising comes off of it all the time, and people all over the world like it, is because of that reason of how the CIA and intelligence agency of the United States of America were painted in this very evil light, even though Zack Snyder did show conflict in there. The agents on the ground were moving as much as they could to save the American citizen that was inside of that resistance compound, right? The rebel compound. And this is something that people need to understand. There was a conflict. The agents that were on the ground, they were saying, call off the goddamn drone. There are friendlies in there. And what did the administration who carried the drone say? They just ignored and they went ahead with what they were going to do. So there was a conflict in there. And I like that Zack Snyder pointed that out. The other thing that I like about Zack Snyder is he is able to expose the hypocrisy of people. See, when we saw Man of Steel, the end of Man of Steel, which I'm going to show you guys something in a minute, but the end of Man of Steel, if you do recall, which is the beginning of Batman v Superman, if you do recall, there was mass carnage throughout Metropolis. A number of buildings came down and stuff like that. Remind us of 9/11. And what's so cool about that, and again, a lot of people don't realize this, but is that Zack Snyder brought these images to light to let people realize how real, if this thing was to happen in reality, how real it would be and how much we would hate it and how we would feel about it after it happened. And the same reactions about, we didn't like what we saw in Man of Steel and stuff was Zack breaking. Zack is such an anti-war advocate. You guys have no idea. Zack is an anti-war advocate. People talk about, oh, he's so violent. He loves violence. He like violence porn. He's not that at all. Zack is actually the opposite of that. He wants to show you how ugly war is. He wants to show you how ugly it is to use bombs and blow down buildings and bombs and blow up villages and blow up people and see bits of people flying through the air and stuff. That is what Zack is trying to get you to understand, how distasteful it is, how uncomfortable it is, how horrendous, how horrific it is. I argue that Zack Snyder is more anti-war in his films than a lot of Hollywood films today. In fact, the average Marvel film is more violent than Zack Snyder's films, but there is no consequence to the violence. And this is the point why we are so taken aback, why we are so appalled about what is happening in Palestine, what is happening in Gaza, is because there are consequences to violence. It is the consequences to violence that we cannot tolerate. Nobody can palate it. We can't swallow it unless you turn your humanity off. You have to turn it off. Because there's no way you're going to be numb or blind to what is happening, what you're seeing before you. It is so appalling. It is so gruesome. It is so horrific. It is so awful that you're sick just by watching it. It literally evokes a physical illness in you. So when people couldn't tolerate Ground Zero, seeing people's bodies flying through the air, getting smashed down and caked down on the ground, how do you think they're going to tolerate what's happening in Palestine with children? No. People in the Western world have been culturized and trained to realize how abnormal and how evil war is, how abnormal and evil violence is. And so I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. I love Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman. I love Zack Snyder's Man of Steel for bringing that to the fore in a very graphic and in a very uncomfortable way. And this is why this image in front of you right now, with Superman having ripped off Batman's head with his mask in his hand and his skull in his hand and all of this fire in the background, is so uncomfortable for people. Because Zack Snyder believes in consequence. He believes in consequence. If you are pro-peace, if you are against murder and violence and bullyism and all these things, you are going to appreciate what this man has been bringing to comic book movies. You cannot idly sit by and not appreciate it. If he has evoked a certain feeling and emotion from you, a discomfort from you, he's done his job. He's woken you up. Too many times, entertainment puts people to sleep. Meaning, they say they are entertained by the movie, but they don't realize that the programming in the movie is programming them to be more callous, lack empathy and sympathy for people because they've been labeled bad, the bad guys, evil, the evil guys. We never look into people's motivations for doing what they're doing so we can understand what they're doing. They talk about motivations. They talk about, what is this character's motivation? What is this character's motivation? Well, almost every single time Zack Snyder does a movie, and we learn what the character's motivation is. I don't mean we piecemeal learn it, because, for example, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, we do not know Darkseid's true motivation for what he's doing, because we have not yet seen Apocalypse. We have not yet seen New Genesis. We have not yet seen the politics of Apocalypse and New Genesis, and why Darkseid rules the way he does, and why he came from where he was, having been defeated in the Great War against an Age of Heroes, to where he is now. And to find out what transpired between there, to have gotten rid of the old Age of Heroes and to bring on this new Age of Heroes that's happening as well. So there's a lot in between there we do not know about. And the only way we're going to know about that is when we see Zack Snyder's Justice League 2. And then Zack Snyder's Justice League 3 is going to wrap everything up. Okay? So it's so critical. And Zack's such a great storyteller, in my opinion. Not only visually, but just in terms of the story. His stories are always compact. They always have something. I think a lot of people outside of the United States appreciate Zack Snyder's movies much more because we realize they're thoughtful movies. Whereas people say, oh, they're mindless bangs, whatever. We think of these movies as layered and thoughtful because Zack is speaking on a number of issues without being super verbose about it. Whereas when you look at Marvel movies, no matter what they are, they're straight up and down. I looked at Captain America, whatever it is, the next Captain America movie there. It's straight up and down, no special effects. They already even revealed that the president is a Hulk. He's a Red Hulk. And I'm saying all of this to say that the good and bad, they don't give the dimensions to people. When you look at Rebel Moon, for example, the characters, look at one of the leading characters. He ended up dying in the end, but he betrayed his own leader. He turned around to become heroic and so on because he loved the woman, the main character, the woman Korra. He was a coward. He would sell out his own people sometimes. Not knowingly, but unknowingly, because he was trying to get, an extra bargain, an extra edge. That character is redeemable, but the point is it's not straight up and down. He's not a straight up and down good guy. Oh, he's a good guy. We need to root for him. No, we learned that certain attributes and qualities in him we loved and we desired, and we started rooting for a guy who had fucked up so bad, he caused his own leader to die because of his greed, his opportunistic greed. We saw him cower like a coward. We see the negative sides of him, but we also saw the positive sides of him, which is what made him heroic and redeemable. See, Zack Snyder brings more to the table in superhero movies than other directors around him. And I've learned to respect that. I've learned to appreciate that. And I've learned to appreciate how he taps into humanity. But see, certain straight up and down, dumbed down fans who've been watching too many Marvel movies. I think Marvel movies are kind of dumb. Okay. I know there's some cleverly written ones. I still love Captain America, the First Avenger, but it's more or less straight up and down. No special effects. You know, Iron Man had a little something in there. I kind of like the first Iron Man. Had a little something in there. All the other Iron Man movies, dumb. So my point anyway is this, that when you look at BVS, when you look at Man of Steel, when you look at Zack Snyder's Justice League, when you look at Zack Snyder's stuff, he's saying some stuff with his stuff. When you look at Twilight of the Gods, he's saying stuff in that. It's not just talking lore for lore's sake. He's saying something. He's signaling about something. You know? And this is what I appreciate about Zack Snyder and his movies. Do feel free to smash that like button. Don't be just looking at my videos. You just watching my stuff. I see you watching my stuff. You know, I see y'all. I see you when you watch my stuff. You're not fooling anyone. So if you're watching my stuff, do me a favor and smash that like button. Okay? Do me a favor. It doesn't take anything to do. And I don't know why you don't do it. Just do it. Yes, so I said it's a segue. The segue is this. Here we see Israel's Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, a.k.a. Miliowski, because he's Polish, really. Comes from Poland. And he's pointing out in Israel, the Gaza Strip. And he's pointing out the Gaza Strip in Israel. And he went into the United Nations with a map of Israel. And he was speaking about the new Middle East. And in the new Middle East, he's talking about all these countries you see here. And he calls the new Middle East a blessing. And he calls what is currently there a curse. And his curse for him is Syria, Iraq, and Iran. Okay? And he sees a blessed Middle East in which Israel is there. And you have transshipment between India and Europe through the Middle East passing through Israel. And for him, from his perspective, an Israeli perspective, he sees it as a blessing because these nations, Egypt, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, they would be signing the Accords, the Abraham Accords, and he believes then Israel could be the hub to pass through all trade and commerce, and that would be the blessing. Now, this same gentleman, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, he also, at the United Nations, showed a picture of Greater Israel, wherein there was no West Bank. And if you do know, Donald Trump has been paid, or let's say his campaign has been funded $100 million by an oligarch who wants the West Bank to be annexed completely by Israel And that's one of the things Donald Trump has to deliver. In addition, we've been seeing this very often, and I just want to go into it a little bit. Greater Israel. And this is where I believe that we need to talk a little bit about this, because this is very important for a lot of people to understand. And we're going to go about doing this very interesting way. If you look at the IDF, they have the Star of David symbol on the top, and then they have a map of Greater Israel on their uniforms. Israeli soldiers display the Zionist plan of Greater Israel on their uniforms. And if you look at, oh my God, if you look at what Greater Israel is, Greater Israel, according to them, involves a significant portion of Lebanon, a significant portion of Syria, a significant portion of Iraq, a significant portion of Saudi Arabia, a significant portion of Egypt, a significant portion, if not all, of Jordan, and all of Gaza and the West Bank. This is what Greater Israel is. Now let's think about this for a second. Syria is right now in a war, and southern Syria, part of it has been claimed by Israel to be part of their land. Israel has claimed a southern part of Lebanon as their land. They have already claimed and they have occupied all of the West Bank, and they are now occupying northern Gaza. And it has been said that they are building roads and settlements in northern Gaza. They've begun construction of that. Of course, Hamas is still up in there fighting them, and so it's all that stuff again, booby trapped and stuff. But even so, furthermore, while they have agreements with Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Egypt, they have been trying to push the Palestinians into Egypt, into the Sinai Desert. They've also been, and you can see they're doing that right now by pushing them out of northern Gaza. Of course, a lot of Palestinians are not listening, and they're staying in northern Gaza in their homes, even though no food and stuff and trucks are going up to northern Gaza, and you can be shot on sight if you're seen. They do have their tanks and munitions up in northern Gaza. But some people have hunkered down and said no part of Gaza is safe, so I'm staying where I'm staying, and they're just staying there. And of course, they're trying to starve them out and all of that. We see that Israel is doing a genocidal campaign in Gaza to try to eliminate the only resistance to them. The major resistance to them is found in Gaza. Now, there is some resistance in the West Bank as well, some fringe resistance groups. But for the most part, the West Bank, under the PLA or PLO, whatever you want to call them, the PLA actually has spies and agents that assist. This is crazy, but they assist the IDF in suppressing protests and suppressing the people. So when people say, the PLA should be responsible for all of Palestine, that's bullshit. Because the leadership will just bow down to Israel, just like all the other leaderships in the West. So that's not a good idea at all. In fact, it's the same PLA, also known as PLO, which allowed for the poisoning of Yasser Arafat. So I'm just saying. But the point is, countries like Egypt, which are, collaborating with Israel, Saudi Arabia, who was trying to normalize relationships, Bahrain, Lebanon, not Lebanon, sorry, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, you guys got to be out of your fucking minds if you're still trying to deal diplomatically with Israel. Israel intends to take portions of your place. Okay? And, of course, as Netanyahu showed, Iran, Iraq, and Syria are considered curses upon the region, which is ridiculous. They've been around forever. So you're saying the Persian Empire, Babylon, and Syria, they are curses. Huh. Wow. Yeah, really. Okay. Syria is the place where, of course, the first Christians they congregated down there. There was a lot of Jewish people up there. Samaria's in Syria. Okay, Lebanon, the cedars of Lebanon. You know, Lebanese people, I know the Lebanese in my country. They're very cool people. They're business people. They're not really into war like that. Okay, Hezbollah is common civilians who banded together in the Muslim Brotherhood to protect the people, and they learned about war and stuff. But they were just average Joes like you and I. Same thing for Hamas. So the Houthis is a little bit different, but they all band together. Okay? And the point is, this is Israel's endgame. Kluchit says an Israeli occupation force IOF soldier was photographed wearing a uniform patch depicting a map of Greater Israel during the operations in Gaza. The map prominently displayed on the soldier's arm encompasses not only Israel, but also vast swaths of territory from neighboring countries, including Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, parts of Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. The image of the soldier with the controversial patch surfaced on social media, quickly igniting a storm of reactions. Critics argue that the map reflects an expansionist agenda, reminiscent of historical imperial ambitions, drawing comparisons to Nazi Germany's concept of Lebensraum, or living space. The concept of Greater Israel is rooted in certain interpretations of Zionist ideology, which assert that the biblical promised land extends from the Nile River in Egypt to the Euphrates River in Iraq. Okay. Greater Israel map displaying Israeli soldiers' uniform patch raises alarm. So, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to not understand. So I don't know why Egypt is playing ball with Israel. I don't understand why Jordan is playing ball with Israel. The people in Jordan realize what's up. Okay? Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, wake the fuck up. You do not want to normalize relationships with Israel because they plan on taking your land. Big chunk of Egypt, some of Sudan. They already destabilized Libya. Okay? They've been destabilizing these countries, and these countries have been in turmoil because guess what? They intend to invade them, and their strategy is a very simple one. They bomb the shit out of the country until it's unlivable. They wait a couple years, and then they migrate in and start building their roads and houses and stuff. Their major weapon is their bombing campaign. So Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, right on the brink of the action. Y'all need to wake the fuck up. Because they're coming for you. And y'all have to band together to stop them. Russia is facilitating a certain economic system which will help out Egypt, which will help out Saudi Arabia, which will help out Jordan, Qatar. Everybody in the Middle East can go and start dealing with BRICS. Russia's opening that pathway, and China, for people to really turn away from these Western imperialists who have not been doing anything but oppressive regimes on these countries. It's time for you guys to turn away and go to something that's more beneficial to you. And people who understand you because they're from the East, they understand Eastern culture. A lot of these countries are very wealthy, and some of them depend on the U.S. for aid. Some of them depend on the U.S. for protection. But quite frankly, if I were these countries, I wouldn't make my bed with the devil when I have better options on the table. Now, with respect to, so this is a warning to these countries. Jordan, you're playing a dangerous game because you know what the end game is. No Jordan. No Jordan in existence. Israel exists. They intend to take over territories, abuse the people, and drive them out the land, and replace it with their westernized European people. They don't even give a damn about the Ethiopian Jews that have migrated across to Israel. They don't really care about them. They will ethnically cleanse them out of the country eventually. And the Palestinian Jews who've been there for millennia, they'll also cleanse you out. I don't care about you. You are actually the original Jews who deserve to be in Palestine. I say all of this to say that it's a time where these Arab nations who have been indifferent about what's happening, they need to wake up. Because if they can do it to the Palestinians, they're going to do it to you. And if they can do it to you, guess what, Americans? They're going to, well, they're already doing it to you if you haven't paid attention. You're giving them taxes and they're not taking care of you. Flood victims, no money for flood victims. No money for flood victims. Are you out of your mind? No money for flood victims. Which leads us to another thing. The fall of the American empire. I was listening to Mr. Wolf, who's a professor at university, and I forgot his first name yesterday. He was educating the American public on the fact that it's inevitable that China will rise as the new economic power in the world. It already is, but their cities, their places are just at a standard way beyond because they have invested in their people. I want to explain something to a lot of you out there who are drinking the Kool-Aid that China is the enemy. China is not your enemy. I used to believe that same shit in my country as well. They're not the enemy. Okay? They just know how to blossom and grow their economy. In the last 4 decades, China has increased their economy by God knows how much. They're one of the fastest growing economies in the world, aside from India. We've seen the successes of Sri Lanka and the beautiful skyscrapers and the way how their cities are. The people of the East, there's a lot you can learn from them. Their diligence, how they use their human resource, how they treat their human resource, how they treat their citizens. People say, well, China is communist. No, China is not communist. It is socialist. The government does fund a lot of programs there, but it's also capitalist. It's the best of both worlds. And yes, there are certain freedoms which are restricted in China, and it doesn't have to be that way. But we just have to look next door to Canada, which is a democratic socialist state. Meaning, and for those of you who do not understand what socialism is, I will explain it to you, and it is not a bad thing. In my country, we also have it. Socialism is simply the government taking over certain very important resources to ensure that the human rights of their citizens are satisfied. So the right to earn an income and have an income, that is one. 2, the right to health care and to make sure that it's affordable or you can get it. 2, so whether you subsidize the health care or whether you provide an alternate means of getting health care, that is the important thing. You have social welfare programs. You have so that people can afford housing. You also have the people, the poorest of the poor, that is. You also have social programs which fund innovation, science, sport, the arts, whatever profession you may be in. There is some sort of financial support for you from the government. So that is socialism. It does not exclude the private sector. The private sector can do whatever they want, invest in whatever they want. It's encouraged. So capitalism is encouraged, but it is buffered by socialism so that the people in the country, the government's responsibility is for taking care of its citizens. So the fundamental, this is why America had Social Security. Okay? FDR was responsible for that. Social Security was supposed to take care of the citizens after they get to a certain age. My country, Social Security is also known as, government gives a pension to citizens over a certain age. When you reach over 60 years of age or 65 years of age, you get a pension. Okay? So even if you're not covered by insurance, the state steps in to take care of you. This is what the state is there for. The state is there to make laws, to facilitate business and commerce, and it also has a responsibility to take care of the citizens who have paid taxes for so many years, to give that back to them. The problem with capitalism says we maximize profits. Now, capitalism, a capitalistic society can work if capitalism is controlled and contained. I'll explain what I mean. So if companies and corporations, big, massive companies and corporations, funnel back some of their profits and interest into communities in the United States of America, you don't have to tax them, but if they give back, the problem with business in terms of the capitalist model is maximize profits. But even if you maximize profits, ladies and gentlemen, if you only keep those profits to your organization, contained in the hands of few oligarchs, and you don't reinvest some of that profit as capital into the communities and societies you're in, you have become a parasite. And this is where capitalism is dangerous. But if capitalism is coupled with socialism, meaning I now, as a huge earner in the community, need to take my resources and pour back into the community in social programs or in social support for that community. That is where socialism thrives best. And no one should have to tax you to do that. They shouldn't say this is mandatory. You should be willing as a big corporation because of two major reasons. One, you want to harvest some of that human resource in those communities to work in your companies. Two, very important. This is the most important point I have for tonight. By investing back into your communities, you become well known in your communities, and your communities become loyal to you, a loyalty that cannot be broken just like that, because your name is now synonymous with the communities that you support with social programs. That is advertising you can't pay for, and loyalty you can't buy. And so that is why capitalism and socialism has made China what it is today. And it's that model, because they come from the eastern part of the world where virtues and spiritual elements govern how people interact and interface with each other. Now, having said that, it is very important that societies, I always look to see, how does a society treat the poorest of its people? Because that really tells us what kind of society it really is. So if your society is, if we still see homeless people on the road, if we still see, and even if they're homeless, let's see how they're being treated. How is the homeless being treated in your society? The people without the money to sustain themselves. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. Also, if we look at what is happening in the United States of America, as the empire loses its influence and sway in the world, even though it has a lot of military installations in different parts of the world and is invested and has companies in different parts of the world, what we notice is the brunt of that economic failing and falling out is going and hitting hardest the poor and vulnerable in the United States of America. It is not being absorbed by the wealthiest of America. They are passing it on to the poor. That's the way how the system is working. So what Mr. Wolf was warning the citizens of America is that the gulf between the rich and the poor has widened and will continue to widen. And by the way, this model is not only reflective of the United States of America, this is happening in Europe. This is also happening in my country where I live. And I'm saying to you, the gap between the wealthy and the poor is expanding because the wealthy is hoarding the wealth. The wealthy wants tax breaks. The wealthy wants this. The wealthy wants that. The wealthy wants the other. Because they say, my company needs this. My company needs that. My company needs. That is not the answer. Your human resource needs to be developed as nations. If you're not developing your human resource mentally, particularly mentally, and particularly mentally, then it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to suck from the country's resources. You're going to suck out everything. Then you're going to go somewhere else and suck it dry until someone sucks you out. So you're not helping anything. And what's happening in the American empire is because they have swayed away from socialized programs, we're swayed far right instead of far left. We need the pendulum to swing back left. Otherwise, there will be no America. You'll have civil wars. The place will break up. States will go against states. Maybe foreign parties will come in and also attack America. Who knows? But at the end of the day, it'll go down the tubes. America is losing markets because of its sanctions against Cuba, against China, against Russia. They are militarily laying siege to certain countries, including Venezuela. These are countries that can offer America a lot of stuff if they would simply negotiate, make peace with them, grow the fuck up, and let the interface between their people and the American public be available. Because by interfacing with one another, you're able to get, and this is the thing, America is a multicultural place, which still abides by white supremacy, which is an outdated way of leading. Nobody's buying into that bullshit anymore. It is so abstract now. And you're trying to force the world back into that model when people have grown past that. Colonialism that the politicians preach on a daily level isn't working anymore. The internet has freed up people to become independently minded, to search out things for themselves, to find courses and paths that they want to do, and nobody's going to make them change their fucking minds. We got people in Palestine still TikToking. We got people in Palestine still doing fucking YouTube videos. Isn't that crazy? They're in ruins and they're still doing YouTube videos. They're killing them there. They're slaughtering them. And some people are still trying to do their streams, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? I know in Europe, the freedom to speak and to say certain topics and to talk about certain things has been limited, and it is wrong. People should be free to say whatever the fuck they want once they don't act on what they're saying. So we get all kinds of wild concepts and ideas out there. And at least when people talk about these things, we at least know what they're thinking. But the conversation needs to continue. And that is what people are getting victimized and tagged and attacked for their views. just for their views. They're not acting on them necessarily. They have a view that's their point of view. As whack and as crazy and as stupid as it may sound, it's a point of view. And people should be free to express their point of view. So I wanted to put that out there. I know there's a lot of people who know this already. This is not unique information, but it's something I thought I would share with you guys because I think that it's a little too much. It's a little too rich. It's a little too thick to just ignore these things. You cannot just put your head in the sand. I've been talking about free Palestine, and I am totally in support of the Palestinians' people right to self-determination, their right to freedom, their right not to be oppressed. And I'm never going to change my mind on it. And I'm sorry, I don't care who feels how they feel. You're entitled to your opinion, of course. It's a free world. But until these people are freed, and until a lot of these people are able to either go back to their lands or compensated for their lands being taken, we really haven't turned the tide we haven't turned the tide, away from colonialism. Some of my people, I'm talking about Native American people, were killed by a plague of smallpox. They used biological warfare against my people and killed them. I come from a line of Jews who were ethnically cleansed from Spain. Queen Isabella with the Great Inquisition. I'm a descendant of those people. Some of them went Portugal, some of them went the Middle East. So when I speak, I am speaking from that place. I think Jill Stein and the Green Party talked about reparations. There should be reparations for the Native American peoples, for the white European people who supposedly were escaping religious persecution, came to America and then persecuted the very people that they should have lived in harmony with. And it just shows you how hypocritical. I always think of the parable in the Bible of the unforgiving servant. That servant had a huge debt to the king. The king just forgave him of his debt. And what does he do? He goes to the next person and he's brutal about that person who owes him a debt. You just got forgiveness for a debt and you go beat down the other person and put the other person in prison because they owed you a smaller amount of money? This is the same thing the European Jews have done. This is the same thing that these persecuted, European religious people did. How does that happen, ladies and gentlemen? How do you go from being a victim of the Nazis to being a Nazi? How do you go from being a persecuted religious set of people to being someone who persecutes a religious set of people? How does that happen, people? Why is it the worst racists aren't even white people? Why? The people who want to be white, they want to be in that position of power. When they get it, they behave just like the people who were in that position of power anyway. Why is that? So that's what I got for you guys. I spent an hour doing this stream. I thought it was worth the while talking about it. I am Christ, I am disciple. The Most High is and will always be the one who I serve. I serve no man, but yet I serve all men. So I'll catch you guys later. God be with you. And you have a good day now. Just remember, you can always place your order for the LIV products. My number is 319-4788. You can WhatsApp or call me. I am not existing in the United States of America. I live in the beautiful Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago. So if you are in Trinidad and Tobago and you want to place your order, that's the people I'm talking to. Otherwise, I will see you guys later. Have a good day. You can always donate via PayPal. The link is in the comment section. I'm gone.